So Frank Pavone, Catholic priest, the head of the nonprofit organization Priests for Life. This is like a tens of millions of dollars nonprofit, by the way. This is quite a large organization. And Frank Pavone was defrocked by the Vatican. In some senses, this came out of the blue, meaning there weren't a lot of articles or online chatter or conversation or controversy leading up to this. So when I saw the announcement, it was from Catholic News Agency. When they announced this, I was like, what? What? This is out of the blue. And of course, scrambling to look for details because you always want to know what whoever publishes an exclusive, what their agenda is, who they talk to, what their source is. There wasn't a lot of information in this. So I went searching for information to see if I could find some facts. Well, it turns out that the report itself is accurate. The Vatican has dismissed Frank Pavone from the priesthood, so he's no longer Father Frank Pavone. He is Mr. Frank Pavone now. The reason for this, they said he has no opportunity to appeal. The reason for this is that he's been convicted in the Catholic Church. It's not a civil litigation in the American legal system, but the Catholic Church has convicted him of blasphemy on social media and repeated disobedience to his bishop. Now, again, anybody who's not familiar with how the Catholic Church works, their clerical hierarchy, don't worry, I'm not about to get nerdy on this. All I'm going to say is that priests are subject to ecclesiastic authority, meaning priests take a vow of obedience to their bishops. So this is a big deal in the Catholic Church if a priest disobeys a bishop. And this is actually the thing about this story. It, at first glance, sounds like this really bombastic political targeting, this corrupt Catholic Church targeting a pro-life activist in the wake of Roe v. Wade, probably because he's pro-life and maybe because some of the hierarchy of the church tend to be social justice-y and liberal and don't want to offend people by actually talking about the biblical truths about marriage, about sex, about abortion, blah, blah, blah. And maybe that is the two options, right? Maybe the two options are a corrupt hierarchy of the church targeting Frank Pavone because he's pro-life and an open Trump supporter, or the other option is he is a rogue priest facing his due discipline. It's hard to tell what the truth is, but from the information that we have right now, in a way, both of these conclusions seem to be accurate. And again, I have to preface this by saying we need way, way, way more details, more facts before we could possibly tell whether this is a proportionate reaction to disobedience or whether this is a disproportionate targeting based on politics. So I plied my contacts, if you will. I talked to some canon lawyers. Canon lawyers are exactly what they sound like. They are lawyers trained in the law of the Catholic Church. They represent priests in these proceedings. I talked to some canon lawyers. I talked to some priests who are not associated whatsoever with Frank Pavone just to get their insider view on this. I talked to innumerable active Catholics like myself to get people's takes. And there's really, people have all kinds of theories about what went down. No one really knows the facts here. But there are all kinds of theories from suicide by cop, someone suggested. Now, suicide by cop, if you're not familiar with this, is the phenomenon where a person commits a crime knowing that that crime will result in use of lethal force against them, knowing that a police officer will shoot them if they commit this crime, and they do this deliberately because, suicide, and they want it blamed on cops. So I don't buy this particularly. I guess the theory of suicide by cops in the case of Frank Pavone would be, he didn't want to be a priest anymore. And you can't just, as a priest, you can't just stop being a priest. The only way that you can stop being a priest is if you are dismissed from the priesthood by the Vatican. I think that's a little fantastical. I don't think that there's particularly evidence. I mean, Frank Pavone is 63 years old. It's not like, and he's lived his entire life as a Catholic priest. I hardly think that he was trying to get away from the priesthood, but that's one of the theories. I mean, the other theory is, of course, persecution because he's pro-life. And I think that there could be an element of that. This one, I think, this is another practical reason, something that could be at play here. The Catholic Church is very afraid of losing their tax-exempt status when they have priests who are affiliated with the Catholic Church, as Frank Pavone was, when they become very political. And Frank Pavone openly on social media and publicly urged Catholics to vote for the Republican Party and actively endorsed and supported President Trump. And as an individual, he's allowed to do that. Of course, anybody is. But as a priest, in his capacity as a priest, he is not allowed to direct people to vote for a particular candidate or a particular political party. If he does, then he puts the tax-exempt status of the Catholic Church at risk. So maybe that's a very practical, like very, very practical kind of reason, but it is a working theory.